We did it. Okay. Hi. If you're new to my channel, hi, my name is Stephanie Perry. I'm a year-round house sitter. I'm the creator of House Sitter School, and I help Black women take a year off of work or take a career break from work to travel on a budget. Today, I'm so excited to talk to Dr. Akhu. We're going to be talking about, among other things, we're going to talk about redefining the strong Black woman, which is really important today of all times. We're under trauma from a lot of different directions, right? It's just coming at us. And so we're going to talk to Dr. Akhu about how do you achieve inner peace when the external world is just going bananas. Okay, so if this interests you, make sure that you take a second, hit the like button, and share this with anyone else you know who could use a nice conversation with a licensed clinical therapist. In the chat box, make sure that you go ahead and leave your comments, leave your questions. We'll see them. And if you're watching the replay, leave them in the comments. Okay, long intro. Welcome, Dr. Akhu.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I love your idea of being able to take a sabbatical. I think that is a great way to gain inner peace and hopefully learn how to cultivate it so that you can keep it with you even when you go back to work. Yes, I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I've had a private practice for over 20 years. I am the former president of the New York Association of Black Psychologists. I help people, especially Black women, replace toxic stress with inner peace through workshops, through my writing. I'm an author of 8 self-help books, and through my private practice. So I am so excited to be here and to help the audience replace toxic stress with inner peace.
Tell us, how are you making out? I know as a therapist, you're in New York State, not just in New York State, but you're in the home
in
of
New Rochelle. Like everybody knows New Rochelle now, right? People didn't know where I lived before, but everybody knows the containment zone where things started, especially in New York. But, this is one of the biggest places for this virus. And I'm doing well. My family's all well and healthy, but things started for us early. And it definitely was an opportunity for me to put what I practice to test, right? To see if I really practice what I preach and could maintain my inner peace while we were figuring out what was going on here. I remember the day it started, March 3rd, because that's my mother's birthday. And I do some consulting in Brooklyn. That's the last day I drove to Brooklyn. I dropped off my mother's birthday present on my way to work. And we decided to keep our daughter home that day because we kind of heard about things and she has asthma, so we were worried about her. And that's the last day I traveled to Brooklyn. I've been working remotely ever since. And by the end of that week, my whole private practice was online. I was already doing telehealth. So it was really simple for me to get everybody to meet me online instead of in my office because I had the platform and everything ready. I just had to invite people. So I did a lot of deep breathing, made sure that I did all the things in my toolbox to keep my inner peace, which is meditation, deep breathing, yoga, kept up my exercise, and tried to make sure that I wasn't eating out of stress and still eating healthy. And I was able to stay calm, get us all together, buy a freezer, get it packed, not go overboard on toilet paper, and have us all ready to stay at home. And it's been really interesting because things were at a lull for March, and then things have been picking up, and I've been doing a lot of crisis work, helping people that are really on the front lines deal with the trauma and the stress of this illness.
Yeah, we've all found hopefully we're all finding ways to cope in our, daily lives. Deep breathing is good. Getting some fresh air is good. Even when you don't know, even when going outside is a little bit scary now,
Yes.
Yeah. How do we know if what we need is to go beyond our normal practices and reach out to a professional?
Oh, that's a really good question. How do you know when you need to, when the things that you usually do, the tools that you usually have are no longer working?
Yeah.
Then that's probably when it's a good idea to have a conversation with a professional. And it may just be a conversation to assess if you need more. But if the tools you have and the tools you use are not working, it's a good idea to speak to somebody professional.
Now you have Dr. Akhu. I will leave some links for you because I had to change the YouTube live stream. My links, I'm going to have to leave some links in a little bit, but I'm going to leave some links to you for you so that you can get more info from Dr. Akhu. She is not on like Instagram, which I know everyone is going to ask me like, what's her Instagram or what's her Twitter? But she is on LinkedIn, and I know Dr. Akhu from LinkedIn, and I'm going to leave you a link so that you can follow her on LinkedIn to get information that she's putting out for everyone. Okay, and she also hosts a 5-day
Journey.
notes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
5-day journey. You said the first question that you're asking, like, is this journey for you? The first question you ask is your soul care inconsistent or non-existent at all?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because most of us, I think, would probably raise our hand and be like, non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
What? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No,
Yeah.
you go ahead.
Tell us a little bit about the 5-day journey.
Okay. The 5-day journey is based on my inner peace card deck. So this is the virtual card deck, and it's five cards from the card deck that are little things that you can do to cultivate inner peace. I believe things like, I'm trying to think, gratitude. Focusing on gratitude is one way to shift our moods. So one of the cards is a prompt to encourage you to focus on gratitude and to make a gratitude list. So there are five simple things. I really made sure that they are not expensive. Like, it would be great if I could prompt you to go out and get a massage, but that's not even possible right now, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's a wonderful way to cultivate inner peace. But these are all little things that you can do that don't need anything beyond maybe your smartphone. And just about everybody has a smartphone. But beyond that, you don't need anything, and they are short but pretty powerful. And the idea is to try them out so that at the end, the whole journey is 30 days. At the end of 30 days, you've tried all these different things so that you can have some new tools that work for you. Not everything's going to work for everybody, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if you try something new, you might find something new to put in your toolbox to cultivate and keep your inner peace.
Yeah, yeah. Do you find that a lot of Black women in particular are not taking time to practice self-care or soul care?
Definitely. One of the things that happens for some of us is we're taught from childhood that taking time for yourself is selfish. Right? So many of us either are taught that directly or indirectly by watching our mothers work themselves to death, taking care of family, working, taking care of us. And so we get this concept that taking care of self is selfish. But the reality is we must take care of ourselves, because we also know those same people that we've watched take care of everybody else and not take care of themselves are the ones that have high blood pressure, diabetes, are secretly drinking, right? Doing all these other things that are destructive, harmful, lead to early death. Where if we take care of ourselves first and fill our cups and make sure that we are giving from what we have left over, then we will have a longer life, we'll be less stressed, and even enjoy taking care of others more.
Yeah, because we like you said, we get told that it's selfish to take care of yourself, but then we're the ones who pay the price.
Exactly.
You know, the problems come to us, the physical problems and the mental and emotional stress and distress come to us. Other people go on just fine. They go on, they find somebody else to take care of them, or they learn how to take care of themselves, and then we're left holding the bag.
Exactly. But when you learn that it's not selfish to take care of yourself, that we all need to do that, then you don't fall apart and you can take care of others actually better. You know, when you're full and you have energy and you're healthy, then you can be a better person for your friends and family, as opposed to the resentful person that's still getting things done, or the angry Black woman, which is, I think, one of the reasons why some of us are angry. It's because we are depleted. And we are still striving to do all these things that we don't have the energy and the resources to do.
Yes, and yes to that. Yeah, I just watched a video earlier about the strong Black woman, right? And how the strong Black woman is told, you know, just sacrifice yourself to the grave, basically. But we don't think about what causes what's called the strong black woman is like the precursor to the angry black woman. Like
Exactly.
it's just like step one. Step one, do everything yourself. Step two, be angry about it.
So I like to redefine what it means to be strong.
Hmm.
For me, what it means to be a strong black woman is that I take care of myself, that I model self-care for my children. And that lets me be strong so that I can take care of all the other responsibilities that I have.
That's right. That's right. Hi, Sharice, and hi, Lee. Thank y'all for joining in. Lee says, yes, she's learned from cultural, religious, and social upbringing to be selfless, to be,
Yes.
to not think about yourself. But I don't know that other people get that advice. Like, I don't know that men are ever told, you
No,
know,
I don't think men are. I think women in general can get that advice, but I think it has an even bigger, there's even bigger message for black women.
hmm
And I think that because in other cultures, there's some other balances there, but black women historically, we've always worked outside of the home too. Right. So if all you do is work in the home, I think my husband and my daughter have been watching Bewitched. Do you remember that old show from the 50s? And
yes.
they've been having really great conversations about sexism and all that kind of stuff. But Bewitched, she might have taken care of everybody, but she was working at home. Like
Right.
didn't have another job.
That's right.
Historically, we've always had to work. Most of us
Yes.
have also worked outside of the home.
hmm
And so that's another pressure, right? So
hmm
here you are, you're being selfless, you're taking care of everybody, but you also have a full-time career.
hmm
And so I think that the message is there for women in general, but I think that it is even bigger for us. It's
Yes.
more instilled in us that maybe even verbalized more for us in
hmm
terms of don't be selfish, take care of your brothers,
hmm
that kind of, or mom is out working, so the daughters have to do more. And I think it's just more instilled in us.
And then we're not celebrated until we get to the point of exhaustion. Like, you're not on Twitter, but I'm on Twitter. So every so often they'll be like, look at this picture of this woman. She is a single mother of 6 kids, and she just finished medical school and law school at the same time. Like, celebrate her. And I'm like, no, I mean, congratulations, but also rest. Take a nap. We are designed to rest.
Hmm.
You take some rest. I know people that I met them in college and they have been in school since we met. Right? It's fine. It's good if that's what you want. But some of them, that's not what they want. They just think that they have to have these achievements in order to have value.
Right.
That's all that you bring to the table as a black woman. What you bring to the table is what you do, not just being, not just who you are. I don't
And that's
That
another message
upsets
we
me.
get also. Yeah, we,
Yeah.
we get that message, right? That we are only valued for what we do, for the titles we have, putting a lot of pressure on ourselves to get these degrees or to have these titles in things that don't make us happy. It's
hmm
fine if that's what you want to do, if it brings you joy to do those things, but it's not if you're just doing it for the title.
hmm
And I think that is one of those really difficult messages that some of us get, which I understand. Again, historically,
hmm
education is the only path
Yes.
to true freedom. So I understand why our parents put that pressure on
hmm
us, but needing to figure out how to balance it so that you want to achieve in an area that gives you joy, as opposed to just being a doctor or a lawyer, because those are things that bring status and money.
So I talked about LinkedIn and then I left it. But what I wanted to say, what I meant to bring up was that on
Mm.
LinkedIn, you said that you're on a mission to help 1 million women
One
achieve.
inner peace.
Yes.
That's right. One woman at a time.
1 woman at a
but
time.
but yes, I definitely know that, and I know from my own journey of being stressed out. And can I share my journey for a minute?
Please, please.
Okay. So you guys all remember the well, in my head, the last time things were not nearly this huge, but definitely big. 2008, the financial crash.
hmm
Well, that was a year that I had a personal crash as well. So many things happened that year. And I'm going to try to make sure that I can remember them all. But that year, I got remarried. I bought a new house where I live in New Rochelle. The plan was to sell the house that I had in Brooklyn, but then the financial crash happened, so I couldn't sell the house. I became a landlord. We had to renovate. Never been a landlord before. That's stressful. I got pregnant with my second child. I moved my private practice to New Rochelle. I wasn't sure if the people up here would like my style of spiritual therapy. So that was stressful. I had to go on bed rest with my pregnancy. And if anybody's ever been on bed rest, there is nothing restful for a busy woman like me to be told to stay in bed. So it was stressful to be on bed rest. And even being on bed rest, my daughter was born early. And so I had a preemie baby, trying to manage a home that was an hour away from where I was living, starting a new private practice. Stress was high. And I was the angry Black woman. I was yelling at everybody, thinking about divorcing my new husband. um, Things were really at a breaking point. But being a therapist, I knew that this couldn't work. Right, all my tools weren't working, and I didn't have time for my tools. So I went back to therapy. And going to therapy is when I really realized that I needed to do something different. But what I'd done in the past was I had this great system of getting up early every morning, like 4:35 in the morning. I meditated for a half an hour, and then I would do some spiritual reading for like a half an hour, and then another half an hour of exercise, all before I got my daughter up. I have another older daughter, and this is between marriages. So then I'd get her up and get her off to school, but I had spent an hour and a half of me time before it was time to take care of everybody else. I couldn't do that with a newborn baby, two homes, a new husband, a teenage daughter. My daughter was 15 when I got remarried. It just wasn't possible. So I found ways to break that hour and a half up into little 5, 10 minute segments throughout my day. And I discovered that that was really effective, that it didn't have to be an hour and a half all at once, but really just taking a minute to breathe and take a break to breathe, taking 5 minutes to read something that filled me up spiritually, and a whole bunch of other things and tools that I teach and share really made a difference. And so that's the foundation for me starting this mission to help Black women learn how to cultivate inner peace in ways that fit within your schedule. Because the reality is, many of us are busy and we don't have time to spend an hour or more taking care of ourselves. But you can find 5 minutes, right? And you can do a lot in 5 minutes. You can find 1 minute, and you can do a lot in 1 minute. And before we finish, I'm going to share my absolute favorite technique for stress reduction in just 1 minute.
Do you want to do it now?
If you want me to do it now, sure.
Please. Y'all want to do it now? We have a minute.
We have a minute, no
Yes.
problem. This is what I call the breath square. And I do this at every workshop I give, no matter what I'm talking about. I find a way to incorporate this in every workshop. I teach this to my clients when I start with them. This is usually the first tool that they get for their toolbox. And I like to do it when I do any kind of speaking like this. So what you're going to do is you're going to inhale for a slow count of 4. You're going to hold the breath in your lungs for a slow count of 4. You're going to exhale to a slow count of 4, and then you're going to wait before you inhale again while I count to 4. And we're going to do that 4 times.
Okay.
I'm going to lead it with my finger. Right? And I always do. It's when you do it with little kids, you don't have to worry about them counting well. They can follow the finger. It gives a visual, but you can feel free to close your eyes and just listen to the sound of my voice. You can trace the square around the screen that you're watching, whatever feels right to your spirit at the time. Okay?
Yes.
Here we go. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Now return to breathing as normal and notice. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling slowed down.
Yeah.
So as everyone knows, we had trouble getting started today, and I did not feel like I was with it. And I feel slowed down and with it.
You feel more now, right?
Absolutely more grounded. That's the right way.
And it took me as long to explain it as it took us to do it. And I've timed it. It's literally a minute long to do that. And so I encourage, like, I'm working with some people who are on the front lines now. Between patients, take that 1 minute to ground yourself again so you can think clearly and go to the next person. And as the people are finding it very effective and just getting regrounded, getting recentered. And again, 1 minute, we can find 1 minute to breathe, to get recentered, to take care of ourselves, to fill our cup a little bit so that we have more to give.
When you said earlier, deep breathing, when you said early, that was part of your toolbox. In my head, I was like, Honestly, I was like, okay.
So you didn't think it would really work, huh?
No, I was like, that might work for you, but everybody thinks they're so much different than everything. But it worked. It worked.
It worked. And it works because this is biology. What happens when we are stressed, when we're angry, it's the part of our nervous system that gets activated, which is the fight, flight, and freeze system. It's the same part that would get activated if a big bear were to come running in the room where you are right now.
That's right.
It's set up to preserve life. But the problem is our beautiful, wonderful brains treat a big exam, COVID, which, you can't see and is not in my house right now, but the stress around COVID and an angry bear all the same. So that part of your system can get activated even when there's not a current life-threatening experience. And when it gets activated, your heart starts to beat faster, your liver releases enzymes so to get more energy in your blood so that your legs, so you can run, so you can fight. But we don't have control over most of that stuff.
No.
Right? The only part of that system we have control over is our breath. Right? And so if we breathe deeply, we're telling our bodies there's no emergency. You can shut off that fight, flight, and freeze system and turn on the rest and digest system. You can calm down. So that's why the deep breath is so effective. But you have to breathe deeply, because when you breathe shallow, which is how we breathe most of the time, then that's the same thing that happens when you're in fight, flight, and freeze mode. So it doesn't give your brain and your body the message that things are okay right now.
Yes. That's right. That is correct, because that is how we breathe when we get nervous and sometimes or afraid. And you do sometimes find yourself breathing like that just all the time. Maybe like for the last 6 weeks, some of us have been breathing like that because we've been in some, especially when you're like bombarded with information, you stay in fight or flight, but fight or flight is meant to be short term. It's meant to be a quick response, not a lifestyle.
Exactly. And I'm glad you said bombarded with information. One of the things that I say to everybody in these kinds of situations is do not allow yourself to be bombarded with information. The reality is, yes, things are changing. Yes, you need to know what's going on, but really a short update once a day is enough. Things are not changing so rapidly that you need to be in front of the TV watching all the time. And too much of that kind of information really has a negative effect on your mind, body, and spirit. So I suggest everybody find, 1 or 2 sources of information that you trust. You go in at whatever time of the day works for you. Some people need it first thing in the morning. Some people, want it later in the day. Probably not at bedtime. It's not a good time. Check in for, 1 to 5 minutes, enough so you can get the update, what's going on, and then go off and do something else. Because too much news, too much information just overloads your system and causes you to stay in fight, flight, and freeze mode more than you need to be.
Yes. Ladies, hi, everyone who's new, who's joined in. Joan is in the chat as well. Joan is in Mexico. So I house sit a lot in Mexico, in a town in Mexico near Lake Chapala. And Joan is a friend who I've house sat for some of Joan's friends. Joan runs a Facebook group for the black women in that town, because there's a good amount of black women who have retired or like semi-retired down to that town in Mexico. And
Mm-hmm.
she's giving a lot of updates on what's happening with the virus in Mexico, because Mexico's had a strange response to it. But there are a lot of retirement age or just older, women down there. And Joan is like acting as a like information liaison, or like, she's giving information to these women in the group, to these black women in the group who need it. So somebody like Joan, who has to stay on top of things, how can someone who has, because I pretty much just shut myself off, like not shut myself off, but I've shut out the information. I've
Right.
stopped taking in certain types of information.
Mm-hmm.
And then if something happens and I need it, my mom will tell me, you know. But when someone like Joan or like you, or like, you're working with first responders, if they have to take in the information, what can they do to make sure that they're not overloaded?
One, to know yourself well enough to know the signs of overload, and two, to have tools to deal with it, and three, if you can set up some system, like what I suggested for the first responders, to do that deep breath between patients. Okay, it's a little reset. It's not huge, but that little reset. If your stress level keeps going up and up and up and up and up and up, if you don't do something to at least bring it down, even though you know it's going to go back up, then you're causing a lot of harm to your system. So to find those ways, I'd say for her to set some kind of schedule that will work for her to balance things, to make sure that she's walking and doing other self-care things before and after, at the beginning and end of her day as she's providing this information, and then to find some little things she can do in the midst, because yes, there's a lot of information to sort through. But if you can find ways to take a minute break to breathe, to make sure you take a lunch break and eat, to find that balance is what I think will help not get overly stressed.
Yeah.
And then maybe even to bring somebody else in if you need a break, right? Who else can you bring so you can tap out and let somebody else do some of that filtering for a while, so that you can take periodic breaks and not get overloaded, so you can recharge your system before you go back in.
Ask for help. I think that that's something that black women need to practice.
Yes,
Practice asking for help, because I can't picture a time when I heard my mom say to somebody, "I need help." I mean, she would fuss like, "You didn't take the chicken out of the freezer," when I was a kid. But I can't remember a time when, and I know she needed help. At times she was a foster mom. At times she worked and she always took care of us, and she did 1,000 different things at church. Like, she had every title at church. But I don't know that she's ever asked for help. What is there a way to like practice asking for help, or, work on that?
Yes, you practice asking for help. Unfortunately, the only way to practice it is to do it. I think that, to understand why it's hard for you to ask for help might help. Figure out, what your path is for that. To find a group of friends that you trust and practice it with each other. I think definitely having social support in these kinds of things is helpful, to know that this is something that we're dedicated to doing. So we're going to do this together. We're going to figure out how to do this within our group first. And then once you can practice it and master it within a group of supportive people, then you can figure out how to take it on the road, as they say.
Kind of like an accountability group. Are you in favor of those?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm in favor of any tools that help you, support you in reaching your goals, whatever those are. So definitely accountability groups are great.
Let's talk a little bit about inner peace. Like, is it something that is it attainable, or is it just like, it would be nice, but.
But I think it's really about how you define it. I define inner peace as having the tools to get back to a state of balance. Like you said, that breath square kind of calmed you down. I don't define it as happiness, and I know that there is happiness psychology and a lot of talk about happiness, but I chose the term inner peace purposefully because I see happiness as a temporary state. It's an emotion, but I don't think that's sustainable. You're happy for a few minutes, you're happy at this occasion, but inner peace is sustainable because it's not so much about the state you're in this particular moment, or the feeling that you're having at this particular moment. It's more about having the tools so that you know how to, if you're feeling sad and you can't stay in that place. You know how to change your mood, alter your mood, accept your mood. That's all inner peace.
Yes. Now, Francesca says, hi, Francesca. Francesca says, reciprocity has worked great for me when I need to ask for help. So, yes, it's good to ask for help and, like do an exchange. But what we're talking about is being able to ask for help and not put anything else out, right? It's hard for Black women. I know.
It
I
is.
know. But we're talking about being able to ask someone to help you and when you are not going to give them any exchange, right? We're not talking
Mhm.
about taking advantage of people. But there are plenty of people out there who have no problem asking you to help them when they know they're not going to return the favor. So we there's got to be a way that we can lighten our own load, right? Because when you're always dealing with reciprocity, you're not lightening your load at all. You're just moving stuff back and forth.
Good point. Good point. And I think one of the keys to this is that people don't understand how to say no either, right? And so one of the reasons why Black women don't ask for help is because we feel then somehow obligated that we have to say all, that we either have to say yes all the time to everything, or that this person is not going to be able to have the skills to know when to say no, or that they can't, so that if we ask for help, we're putting a burden on them.
Yeah.
But it's really up to each of us to have boundaries and to know what we can and cannot do, and to be able to say that anybody can ask us for anything, but that doesn't mean you have to say yes. And if you really can't do it, then you need to show up and say, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Maybe I can do this. Or it might just be a solid no, and allow them to go on to someone else. Because then what we do sometimes, this is all part of why it's so hard to ask for help, is because sometimes we say yes when we really should have said no, and then we don't show up.
Yeah.
Or we show up halfway, or we show up late, or we don't show up at our best, when it would have been better for us to just, or we show resentful, right? It would have been better for us just to say, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that, and allow the person to move on to ask. But so we get that all mixed up, and then we don't ask for help when we need it, as opposed to understanding you need to ask, but the other person then needs to say whether they can or not. And if they say no, that's okay. Then they're honoring their own boundaries, and they're taking care of themselves. Saying no is one of the ways you take care of yourself, and that's okay. And then you can move on to somebody else.
Saying no is self-care. Is that what you're saying?
Saying no is self-care. Yes.
Yes. When we feel like we can't say no because the other person is going to be disappointed or even more like upset, or we're going to lose that person. But people are more receptive to no than some people. Like some people with a healthy understanding of personal boundaries are generally okay with the no. They'd rather have the no than the yes, and then you're like angry and
right,
like you said, resentful,
or you show up late. You don't really you don't fulfill what you say you're going to do. So I know I'd rather have somebody tell me no than I'm relying on you to do something for me because you said you're going to do it, and then you don't do it.
And the no doesn't have to have, you don't have to add anything to the no. No is a complete sentence.
It is a complete sentence. And I spent like a whole year practicing that, just going around purposefully saying no and purposefully choosing not to explain why. Just because I wanted to empower myself and there are definitely times that you want to explain to people why you're saying no. But I spent like this whole year just going, no, nope, I'm not doing it. Nope, nope. And purposely biting my tongue afterwards so that I could strengthen my ability to feel empowered to just say no, and that it's okay.
It's okay. And it's okay to say yes to the stuff that you really want. So as a person who talks to women a lot about taking time off to yourself, what I hear all the time is, I want to take some time to myself, but I love my family, but I love my job, but like they have to justify why they want to do the thing that they want to do. Why is it so hard for us to say yes to the good stuff?
I'm not quite sure why it's so hard, beyond the fact that people feel guilty. And sometimes people really are judgmental of themselves, feeling like if you want a break from your family, that means you don't love them. When the truth is, you can love them and still want to have time away from them. That these two things are not mutually exclusive. But sometimes people get that confused and feel like if I want to be away from them, that must mean I don't love them. So I can't, I can't have that feeling. And one of the things I love about the therapy work that I do is allowing people to have that safe, judgment free zone to explore how they're feeling in its entirety without worrying about what I think, and helping them learn not to judge what they think, but to just accept that this is what it is. And then once you accept it, we can figure out what to do with it. But until you accept it and honor it for what it is, then it's hard to figure out which direction to go in.
I, oops, I lost you. I talked with, oh, I mixed us up. I talked with 12 black women who were taking or who had taken a career break to travel. Rashida Dow, who is a gap year coach, and I partnered together to talk to 12 black women about them taking a career break and what it was like and why they did it and all of that. And all of them were like, they felt in the beginning that instead of justifying it to other people, not all of them, but instead of having to explain it to other people, they just didn't tell anybody. Like, I know a couple of them said they were like it at the airport before anybody knew that they had either quit their job or taken a leave of absence to go, because they just didn't want to hear other people's opinions about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And other people's opinions can be pretty, I don't know why people feel the need sometimes to voice their opinions so strongly, but I definitely know people can do that, and they really will. And I think some of it's out of their own fear. Like, so they put that fear on you. So I understand why some people would not want to say anything, because they don't want it to have to deal with that fear from other people, their opinions.
But another wonderful thing that came out of those conversations was that at least, I'm going to say 5 or 6 of those 12 women say it was their therapist who came up with the idea. You need to take a sabbatical. What do you see in women that makes you say to them, take a break, an extended break?
I guess that anger, dissatisfaction with life, just plodding through, but not living, right? And life is too short not to live, to enjoy it. And so when people are doing things and that they are completing tasks, but with no joy in their lives, that's when something's got to shift. And sometimes what that thing is taking a sabbatical. Sometimes it's changing jobs. I know I've coached quite a few people to become entrepreneurs and to get rid of the day job and to work on their own, which I guess taking a sabbatical is a form of that. Just really trying to, again, find inner peace and understanding that you don't have to keep doing the same thing if it's not bringing you joy. I have an 80-20 rule. Whatever you're doing, and this fits for jobs, careers, as well as relationships, it should be great 80% of the time. There's always that 20% that you have to deal with, paperwork that you don't like dealing with, or your husband leaves his socks on the floor, that kind of stuff. There's always a bit of it that's going to be annoying or challenging. But if you love it, 80%, if it's great 80%, then the 20% is not a big deal. When that ratio starts to shift is when you have to think, can I shift it back? What can I do to shift this back to 80 great, 20 eh? And if you can't shift it back, then it's time to leave. And that's been my rule for a long time. And that's how I deal with jobs. If I'm not loving it 80%, then it's time to go.
Do they actually write out is this something that somebody can write out on paper, or is it just something that you can figure out in your head, or
Either it depends on the person and how they like to process information. I've had people I've worked with that definitely needed to see it, are more visual. And so then if you need to see it, you write a list of positives and negatives, and you list down everything. And if you list down everything, your positive column should be approximately 80% bigger than your negative column, right? And that would be the visual. For others, it's just more of a feeling, a sense that this is mostly good, but a little bit bad, a little bit annoying, things that they don't like doing, paperwork or so forth. For others, it's that more of a sense. I've had quite a few people say, when I say that and I introduce that rule, they say, it's the other way around. Yeah. It's the other way around. So, yeah.
And you said if it's not 80-20, time to leave, not try to justify it or or even wait it out, maybe?
Wait it out only as you have a exit plan, right? Time to leave doesn't mean, I quit tomorrow.
Right.
But it means that it's time to start creating an exit plan so that you can get out. And I find that even just doing that for a lot of the people I work with, once they start thinking, I'm not stuck here forever, and figuring out the exit plan, they find that their happiness increases, that their inner peace increases, that they're realizing that this is not forever. And that doesn't change the 80-20, but it changes the experience of going to the job.
It having that little bit of hope, like seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, that's real.
A real thing.
In the Army, they call it being a short timer. Once most of your time is done, I was in the Army for 5 years. Some people know they're staying in for 20. Some, aren't sure. After about 10 or 12, they might leave. But when you know that your time is almost over, everything is no problem. It's easy. PT, getting up for PT. Let's go. Everything, it changes. Your whole perspective changes when you know that you're not going to have to stay in this situation forever. Even if it's months, because I was a short timer twice because I thought I was in for 4 years, and then I got stop lost and I had to stay in for a fifth year. And so I had that time build up, and then maybe like a few weeks out, they were like, no, stop loss. You have to stay in for another year. But that last year I did grumble and complain. But that last year flew by. It was nothing. It was easy. I did PT. Sure, you want me to do PT in the afternoon in the Texas heat? Okay, let's go. Like, it's all good. But yeah, they call it being a short timer.
Exactly. So that's the mindset. It's all about our mindsets. The stories we tell ourselves are so powerful.
Okay. So you guys have anything else? Let me read some comments here. We've got Sharice. Happiness is an emotion, but also a state of being. So there is like a long-term happiness that some people have, right? Like or maybe it's just a word, a semantics thing.
It's a semantic thing, yeah. I like the term inner peace, but yes, if the term happiness works for you, then that's perfectly fine.
And you can see it. So it comes out of people. You can see it. When I watched your video, so I stalked you a little bit on LinkedIn, and then I watched your intro video. And I mean, as soon as I heard, I don't even know if it was your face. It was either your face or your voice. I was like, oh yeah, she's got it. She said she's on a mission to help Black women achieve inner peace, or help 1 million women. And I'm like, yes, she knows what she's talking about.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It manifests itself, like it shows itself in a lot of different ways.
Yes, and I think that's important. I find that to be really important as a therapist, that I have to practice what I preach. I don't want to go to a dentist that has, yellow teeth, right? It seems to me that if that's your profession, you should have that straight. And so I really think that it's important that everybody can feel and see from me that I practice what I preach, because I can only take you down the road, so far. If I don't have the tools and I'm not using them myself, how can I help you learn the tools? And now every single tool that I use is not the right tool for you. And that's okay. We're on the journey together. It's a partnership, but you need to have faith that I understand and know something in order to trust me to help guide you down that path.
Yes. Yes. And speaking of trusting Dr. Akhu to help guide you down that path, the link, as I said, I wasn't able to get the link in the description yet, but the link will be in the description to her 5-day journey. All right. So let her walk you through the steps that you need to take to learn to care for your own soul, to care for yourself. Right. We use the word self-care and then it doesn't mean a whole lot, but it's, caring for yourself. We forget that self-care is a real thing. We think self-care is like getting your nails done or whatever, but self-care is taking care of yourself, your inner life and your outer life, your life. Yeah. All right, Francesca, as women, I think we battle with our innate nature to nurture, compromise, relate in order to maintain or create a sense of security or stability. I think that a lot of women take on the nurturer role, and some of us are not nurturers, right? Like that's
one of those fallacies that every woman's meant to have children and to be a nurturer. That's not true. If it is true, that's of you, that's fine. But I think part of inner peace is knowing who you are.
Yes.
and being accepting and loving of who you are, whether that's nurturing or not. And if it is, then doing that fully. But again, nurturing yourself,
Yes.
remembering that you have to nurture you as well as everybody else.
Now, you said that you've coached women through things like starting their own business or leaving, leaving their current situation, which can be really scary. Women talk to me a lot about fear in terms of travel, right? So you're doing this thing that you've dreamed to do all the time. Their fear isn't usually like, what if I can't get a job when I come back? Their fear is usually the other people. What's it going to be like? How are people going to, especially black women? How do they treat black women in Vietnam? How are they going to treat black women when I get to Costa Rica or whatever, any place? And it's usually, you're going to be fine. But we have this innate fear of strangers, or not innate. We have this fear of strangers, I think, that comes from, I think, PTSD. I think black women in the US that need that question of fear all the time. When people ask me that, in my head I think, is that PTSD? Like, are you just afraid of other people because of the treatment that you've gotten in this country?
Uh, there's a term for it. It's race related stress, or race related trauma. And that is this, it's not just about you and your own personal experience, but the fact that we do have this historical experience of being abused, of slavery, lynchings, all those kinds of things. And so it does make sense that we are concerned when we're going out of our comfort zone as to how people are going to see us. And also just knowing the reality of when people see TV in other countries and they see us on TV, they don't, I mean, now we have Obama, so that helps balance things out a little bit, right? But in general, that's not who they were seeing. They were seeing us all as um, all the negative stereotypes about who we are. And so I'm thinking that people are going to make those assumptions about us when they first meet us. It makes some sense.
You're right. When I left on my gap year, it was 2015, and every I was started in Southeast Asia. Southeast Asians are crazy about Barack Obama. He went to school in Indonesia, which every Indonesian person I met told me. There, but all of Southeast Asia is very proud of Barack Obama, and they would, if they would meet me and know that I was American, when they saw me later, they would yell Obama, like that was a thing. Lately, so after 2016, I started house sitting in Mexico. We have a different president with a different relationship to Mexico, and people in Mexico let me have it. They didn't treat me poorly, but they let me know their opinion of our current president. I had a little boy in a McDonald's. It was his birthday, and he had a little birthday balloon on, and so I'm going to say he was 7 or 8. He
Mm-hmm.
let me have it in Spanish when he asked me where I was from in Spanish, and I answered him. And he started pointing and talking about a muro, which I couldn't figure out, but it's the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And he did let me have it about the wall. His sister translated for us, his older sister. But so people do judge us as Americans, when we
Yeah.
travel abroad. But we don't have the I think, in my opinion, we don't have the major safety issues abroad that we have here, you know
Mm-hmm.
and you get to go. That's one of the reasons I love when black women go for a long time, because you get to go and you get to take it off. You get to take that weight off your shoulders. You don't have to think about it, because all they see when they see you are American dollars. Like, they just want to give you the best, and
Yes.
they do want you to buy all the stuff, but they
Mm-hmm.
just see you as a US dollar sign, not a descendant of slaves. I've had people ask me, how did we get to the United States? And I'm like, don't you know? Like, but no, they don't know. They don't know. They hear the
Mm-hmm.
accent and they're like, oh, okay, American. And that's something that it would be nice for, I would like other black women to just see what that feels like for a while, to just be like an American. Because you don't get to feel that here most of the time. It depends on where you
No.
are, but most of the time we don't. Yeah, Lee says, yeah, the historical and media portrayal does affect the way people see us. It does. Because I had a kid in the Philippines just start rapping out his window when I was walking down the street one morning. I was like, I don't even know that song, dude. I'm 42 years old. I don't know that song. So it does affect the way that they see us. But I think that question, but the fact that the first question that pops up always is, do they like black people in this country, or do they mistreat black people in this country? That's more a result of being from this country than what the other countries out there are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love when black people leave the US for a long time. I love it because you get to see it. You get to see it. I tell the story all the time. Tiffany and I met a black guy in Thailand who just kept saying, "I feel so free. I feel so free." He had been in Thailand for, I don't know, months or years teaching, and that's all because I feel so free here. I feel so free. It's a different kind of experience. I want us all to feel it. I want us, for no matter how long, whether you're gone for weeks or months or years or forever, I want us all to be able to get a chance to feel that.
Yeah.
Can we talk about some things that we can do when that fear, whatever that racial, that stress, that racial trauma, when that starts to be when that's in the forefront, when it's starting to guide our decisions instead of inner peace, right? When that racial trauma is guiding our decisions, how can we quiet it while we're still in the situation, right? We had a terrible, I don't know, did you watch the video of Ahmad
No.
being okay? Yeah, so I wish I hadn't. I wish I hadn't. People on Twitter said, don't watch, and I
Yeah, I
watched it.
don't watch any of those videos because I know that they take away my inner peace, and I get enough of that kind of stuff from the direct work that I do with clients that I try to stay away from those videos.
So what can we do, like a week like this where we're just going through it?
Hmm.
What can we do to quiet that that I don't know. Can you quiet trauma? I guess that's the first question. Can you quiet
I
the?
deal with trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can deal with trauma. I don't know if you can quiet trauma, but you can definitely deal with it. I'd say it's really important to have a trusted friend or two that you can process with. Right? You need somebody when these kinds of things are happening to process what you're experiencing, to be able to talk about it and be able to kind of let it go. Otherwise, it just festers. So to have somebody to process with, I think that's important, especially for those of us, black and brown people who are working in environments where we're the one of the onlys, to have a trusted friend that is not in that environment that we can process with, because so much of these issues, especially work issues, are, is it me, is it racism?
Yeah.
And it's so hard to tell sometimes. So just to be able to have somebody that you trust, a therapist or a good friend, that you can talk about how you feel. To understand that, to understand who you are and the fact that you may not be able to watch those videos, and to accept that and be okay with it. To not feel like, oh, well, I'm going to be uninformed, and and what's going to happen when somebody asks me. I was just honest and said, no, I didn't watch the video. And I hope that that doesn't mean that everybody watching and listening now thinks that I'm stupid. But you know what? If it does, that's okay too, because I'm okay with me. And I know that for my inner peace, I can't watch those things. I have to take those things in very small doses, because that really does disturb my soul. I know that these things are out there. I suggest, like I read about them or listen to NPR. You don't have the visual when you're listening to something like NPR. When you read the newspaper, or the newspaper in whatever form, on screen, there might be a picture, but a picture is not quite as disturbing as a whole video.
That's right.
So really just figuring out which ways to get your information that you can handle better. And so I know those videos, I can't handle them. And so I accept that about who I am, and I stay away from them, and I don't watch. But I will, I'll read. My husband tends to watch, so I'll have him tell me a little bit about it, and be okay when he says, well, you should see this. Nope. I know I can't see it, and I'm okay with that, because this is an unusual time in our world where we can re-traumatize ourselves through seeing these videos, where time in the past, people have always been lynched in one way or another, but we hear about it. You'd hear from somebody else would tell you, did you hear what happened? Hearing about it is really different than being able to see it, and then feeling pressed to see it over and over and over again. Either the same video or different versions of those kinds of things. It really has a different effect on the mind and the spirit.
I regret it. I regret my decision. Yeah, because I don't. It's just seared in there now. You don't. It doesn't. It's not
You
like.
can't
No, you can't unsee it. That's right. Yeah.
So
So,
just remember that in the future. And when these
mhm.
things, because this is going to happen again, and there's going to be another video, then you're going to want to find a different way to get that information, to interact with it. And that you know now that you can't unsee that. So you don't want to see it again if you can help it.
It's a little bit of the reason why I don't go to like war memorials and stuff. Like in Cambodia, they have the memorial to the killing fields, and in
Hmm.
Vietnam they have Vietnam War, like they call it the American War memorials and stuff. And I don't go. Part of it is I just don't want that. I just don't want it in me. I don't want to remember it and hold on to it. And then
Exactly.
another part of it is that I have a hard time going through those spaces with white people. We talked about this before in a video a couple of weeks ago, because inevitably somebody's going to say something that's just going to infuriate you. And so it's best to just not, I think it's best to just not, either don't do it or just go with people that you know that are going to be a safe place and not going to make you want to burn the place down.
Walk around with your fists all balled up. That's what I say. That it makes you. I can't do this because it's going to make me walk around with my fists all balled up for the next week, and so we can't do that.
That's right.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it's so important for everybody to feel empowered to be able to say no, or I can't do that, or I don't want to do that, and to accept that. And it doesn't mean that you are ignorant or putting your head in the sand and not wanting to get the information. You have to know what you can handle, especially if you're in charge of taking care of other people, and you have those kinds of responsibilities. If you
Yes.
fall apart, if you are so devastated by this that you can't take care of the things you need to, then you're not doing anybody any good. The other thing is to when you do have your fists all balled up, to figure out what to do with it. What constructive thing can you do with that? How can you help somebody? How can you get politically active, or whatever you need to do in order to point that negative energy in a positive direction, as opposed to just holding on to the anger and the hatred, because that doesn't do anything for anybody either. It just eats away at your soul.
Yeah. And I like to advise people that you have a fight or flight response. You don't have to fight. You can flight. You can
I
just
like
go. Just
it.
go. It's
Mhm.
okay. That's a valid response.
It is.
Yeah. Not well, maybe we can't fly anywhere today, but soon, one day, fight or flight will both be a valid response. You mentioned about like when you're the only person, when you're the only black woman or only person of color or whatever at work, it adds
Hmm.
on different layers to what how you're treated. You don't know, how do you know if I'm being treated this way because I'm black, or are they just a bad manager, like you don't know how to deal with that. I talked to a woman who said that she was in an abusive relationship with her boss. Like their boss, her what was happening to her at work was abuse. Can we do you have I think that you can we talk a little bit about women who are in a workplace and just feeling like they're being abused or taken advantage of at work? Is there something, what would you what do you do we can we talk about that, or is that not
Yeah, sure. We can
okay?
talk about
Because I hear that
that.
from I hear that more than it's shocked me. I hear that more and more now. I think some of us have learned new words to express what's always been going on.
Yeah, and that would definitely be one of those situations where it's 20% good and probably 80% bad. So I think that, again, having that trusted person so that you can reality test and sort through what's going on and how you're feeling, and if there's anything different that you might want to try. And if that's not working, then getting out of there. Being empowered this is not the only job. Even in a bad job market, this is not the only job. What skills can I get while I'm here so that I can be more marketable? Like empowering yourself to do that, and finding ways to, if you can, and of course this depends on the situation, the specific situation, but if there are things that you can do to reduce the harm, right? And those things, I have one person that I've been working with, and that's the situation where she's really felt that there's been a racially charged environment. So doing things like having to back up everything with an email, right? That's a pain in the butt to have to do, but if that's the kind of thing that helps you feel safer in the environment, figuring out those kinds of things that you can do so that you can reduce the harm, meaning like if you can't have a meeting with this person by yourself, you have to always have somebody else there with you, then that's okay. So having that trusted person help you problem solve around the things you can do while you're in the environment, and then how you're going to get yourself out of that environment, and to know that you have the power to leave. There is no job that is the last job on earth.
Yes.
But you just have to put some work in and figure things out in order to get your path so that you can go.
And this is the type of topic that you need to get. Um, you need to get like a new, like a therapist. I don't want to say get a therapist, but yeah, you need to get a therapist.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you need another person. Like you said,
I
talking it
yeah.
over with someone who you trust is crucial.
And it might be a therapist, it might be a mentor, it
Mm,
might be a colleague. I definitely believe in therapy. Obviously, this is what I do. But I don't think you need a therapist is not the right tool for everything.
mm,
I think a therapist is really important when you need a judgment-free environment where the focus is only on you.
mm-hmm,
With our friends, there does need to be a certain amount of reciprocity. Not I give you this and you give me that, not tit for tat. But you can have a conversation with a friend and it all be about you. That's just not the way friendships go. At some point, you have to ask them about them. But with therapists, that is my job. You don't have to worry about whether my child is getting on her computer for homeschooling right now. If I had lunch, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. My job is to show up ready to be there for you for your whole session
mm-hmm,
and to just focus on you.
mm-hmm,
And anything else, certainly I appreciate it with my clients have been asking that they know that I'm in the containment zone. Of course, they ask because we have a relationship, how I'm doing. But that is like the first minute of our conversation. And then it's all back to them
mm-hmm,
and how they're doing. So that's therapy is a place for focus on you, solely on you, and a judgment free environment. Because that's the other thing. Our friends want something for us. Our family wants something for us, and that's fine. That's their jobs to want the best for us. A therapist, my job is to have no judgment, not want anything for you, but just to hold this space so that you can figure out, as one of my patients said, you help me hear my voice clearly and figure out what I wanted.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, because we don't have free time, we don't really know what we want. We kind of get put on a track, like in a groove, and
Hmm.
we're like a needle on a record, and we go around that groove until one day we're like, oh wait, how did I end up here? We
Exactly.
get, yeah. So we need either the time or, yeah, not either. We need the time, whether it's alone or with someone else, to be able to figure out what it is that we want. Because this is it. As far as we know, this is our shot. This is our life. It's not a dress rehearsal.
Exactly. And sometimes, like, journaling can be very helpful. It's one of the tools I often encourage people to use. That can be very helpful in sorting through your thoughts and your feelings and figuring out and getting to know yourself better. But sometimes you just need another human being to ask you those questions, to get to know you and know when you're avoiding talking about things that you really should be delving into. So that's really, another thing a therapist does is we get to know you and know your patterns and hold on to your patterns because you know the saying like the you can't see the forest for the trees,
Yeah.
right? In your life, you are looking at the tree. It's right up there against your
Mm-hmm.
face. You can't see everything. My job is to be outside of it, to notice your patterns, to be able to put these things together so that I can help you see the overall.
Yeah. 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 I found that when I took that extended break, like I didn't take a gap year to achieve inner peace. Like I didn't. I just wanted to travel and see some stuff and take some pretty pictures. But I
Mhm.
found while I was out there that, oh, you know what? I thought I was going to come back to the exact same life. And I found when I was out there, oh, you know what? I want actually different things. I don't know
Mhm.
exactly what yet, but I know I want something very different from from the groove in the record that I'm in right now. And we just don't know it until we take some time. But the other thing about traveling like that is some people think that it's going to be like this panacea. It's going to cure all the problems. But wherever you fly to, you're there
Exactly.
with all your stuff. You still have to work. You still have to do the work and, because
Hmm.
no matter what, you're still the same person. Like I was still the same Stephanie who just wanted to lay in a hammock all day. Like still the same person. So that the sabbatical or whatever is not going to change you. It's going to change your environment and it's up to you to change you.
Exactly.
Are
And it's
you
work.
It's work. Are you doing I think I already know the answer to this, but are you doing sessions with people online now?
I have even before this crisis, I did some sessions online. I had a full setup for telehealth before the crisis. So now everybody's online. But yes, I am doing sessions online, and some people that didn't like the idea before find that it's convenient. You can do it from home. It could fit in your schedule a little easier because you don't have to travel all the way to my office.
Yeah.
And then, so I know that after this, there'll be some people that will want to continue, or at least occasionally continue with telehealth. And then there's people who miss my office because my office is set up specifically to be a healing space. And so I know people miss coming in and just having this time in this space to focus on themselves.
Is therapy now more like when I was, so I'm 45, almost 46. When I was younger, you would hear certain people talk about therapists. It would usually be like people on TV, like not people I knew or my friends parents or anything like that. But now, like, it seems like as a Black woman, it seems like in the Black community, therapy is much more embraced. Is that real, or is that just like a few people on Twitter?
I think it's real, especially for the younger crowd. I think there's still a stigma, and I think there's still a stigma for those closer to our age. But I think that my oldest daughter is 26 now, and her group seems to be with this and understand therapy and be more about the idea that going to therapy doesn't mean that you're crazy. But I still think there's a big stigma out there. It really depends on how exposed people are to what therapy is, and what kinds of stigmas they get from their family, messages they get from their families and friends and their communities about therapy. But it's getting there. We're working on it. I do a lot of work around dispelling the stigmas and trying to help people understand what it is that I do. Because one of the problems is that it's so private. It's a one-on-one thing, so nobody knows what's happening here in the office with me. And then when we portrayed on TV and in movies, very often therapists are doing all sorts of unethical things. So that doesn't help the field very much at all. But yes, I think that we're moving toward helping people really understand why this is helpful. And I love doing dispelling the stigma kind of work and having people understand, especially with Black men. Some of my best work is working with Black men who were resistant at first, didn't want to come into therapy, didn't really want to talk to me, finally got convinced to get started. And now, in fact, I just had this a couple weeks ago, where I taped a show kind of like this with a Black man that happens to be one of my current clients. And he's talking about how great it is. And, telling the world. He invited me on the show because he wanted to tell the world, and he was very resistant at first and now understands the values. So I think that is so important when the Black men that I've worked with go out and start telling other people, no, you should really do this. This is good stuff. Somebody's just listening to you about your world for 45 minutes, an hour. It's great.
That's great. A lot of Black women have kind of been de facto therapists for Black men, and like, no, dude, you should be paying someone.
And you can't really be a therapist for your man.
No, you can't. No, you can't.
You shouldn't be a therapist for your man.
No, but a lot of times they expect you to do like they call it emotional labor. They expect you to do all this for them. Like, no, you need to pay somebody. I'm not taking that on. I can't do it. All I'm gonna do is give you my my messed up stuff and take on your messed up stuff at the same time. You need a professional. Yeah. Francesca says, we use the term do the work, but many people don't know how or what to do. Do you have any suggestions or practical advice for women who don't have direct access to therapy?
Okay. Yes, I do. In fact, the topics of a number of my self-help books are all about helping people have a way to do the work. Yes. My first self-help book is one for domestic violence survivors, intimate partner survivors. And I wrote it because there are so many people who free themselves of intimate partner abuse, but then don't have the resources to get the support they need to rebuild their lives. So that's why I wrote that book, to give them skills. And it's all full of exercises and different things you can do to do some of that work on your own without a therapist. Even better if you have a therapist to help you process it. But you can process it with a friend. You can do it on your own. So things like journaling, meditation, Um, Journaling, meditation, going for long walks. There are a lot of different ways of being with you and listening to your guiding voice to help you start to do the work. You can even do it with a friend, like the accountability. Like that's some of the work, right? Part of being in therapy is being accountable to me. You know that if I give you this homework or if you set this goal, the next week I'm going to ask you about it. And so having an accountability circle is a way that you could do some of that work. Really depends on what your goal is and what work you need to do, but you can definitely find ways beyond therapy. And I'd say for just about everybody, starting with a journal is a good way to start to identify some of the things you're struggling with, to start to get connected to your inner voice. So you can start right there.
I will link to Dr. Akhu's books. I will link to, I think you have like an author page on Amazon, I believe. I will link to that in the description. So come back, you guys. You guys who are watching live, come back and you'll see that in the description, or you can look them up. Yes, but yeah, books are a lot of how we started to learn about therapy. Like a lot of people started writing books. Iyanla Vanzant is the first person I can think of. I was younger when she started writing books, and that was our intro to the world of doing the work. Yeah, so
she's got really great books for doing the work. Depending on, again, what the topic is, but she's got a few really great books, and sometimes I use those as part of therapy. I have clients read the book, read a chapter, and we come in and then we talk about it and process it together. So that is definitely something you can do even if you don't have a therapist.
Yes, I think that's a fantastic idea. Yeah, because the books, the books, that's what I've used. Like, books have gotten me to as far as I've gotten today. As much as I've done today, it's because of the books that people like Dr. Akhu have written, so that I, am not just floundering out there like, I think I'm perfect, I'm all healed. Because you talk about, you're not just psychology, you're psychology and spirituality. Do you have like why do we need to add in spirituality?
Why do we need to? Well,
like,
not everybody. I think that because the people that I focus on are women of color, and women of color, especially people of color in general, tend to be spiritually based, right? And that can be varied for each person. Some of us, it's very much in the church, and for others, it's not in the church. But in general, as a people, as a culture, we're spiritually based. So that's one of the reasons why it's so important to me. Also, but my spirituality has been such a healing tool for me personally. And that's another reason why I like to incorporate it in the work we do. Also, there are some African traditional religions like Yoruba and Akan that a lot of people don't understand. And I find it to be one of my areas of specialty to be able to offer therapeutic support to people in those communities. So I understand some of the rituals and things that they do, and don't think that because you are a member of a Yoruba house, that then that must mean you're crazy, right? Where we know that some therapists not understanding these traditions would equate some of the rituals and some of the understandings, talking to their Orisha, with insanity, when that's not the case at all. So I think that it's really important that we have therapists, and I try to train other therapists to understand this as well, that understand who we are, that want to understand who we are and what the purpose is of us being connected to our spirit and to our spiritual understandings is in our lives, as opposed to making assumptions about those things. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't also have a serious mental health condition and be involved in this. But I have enough experience and enough knowledge to be able to sort through the difference and be able to help people figure out how to live with those things, even if that is the case.
And a lot of the practices that we do have a spiritual foundation, we just may not know. The whole idea to me of sitting down and pouring tea is it's a spiritual practice, that it's just something that people think is just secular,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And many things can be made into a spiritual practice for you. Those rituals that work for you, that is another way of cultivating inner peace. The ritual of pouring tea and drinking tea, and if that's something that soothes your soul and refills you, then that's an important thing to cultivate.
Thank you so much for asking that question, Francesca, about how to do the work. I appreciate that question. Yeah. Anybody have any other questions? Go ahead and leave them in the chat. Let's see, am I missing anything? So I appreciate you guys joining in today. You know that I think the solution to a lot of things is for you to quit your job and travel, but that's not right. That's not the main solution. It is a part of a broader solution. I want everyone who wants to take some time for themselves to be able to take that time without feeling guilty, without feeling like, they're just a weirdo or a terrible person, a terrible mother. It really hurts my heart when someone, when I'm talking to somebody and she's like, but I love my kids though. Like, it's okay. It's okay. Your kids are 25 and 26. You can leave for a few months. And I don't think anybody is going to say, oh my gosh, she is the worst mother. Like do what you have to do, or take them with you, even if you have to take them with you. But yeah, it makes me feel really good to have you guys on here today, to know that we are getting this good information from Dr. Akhu and asking questions. So if you have any questions that you want to ask her, go ahead and ask while we're here. And again, I'm going to thank you again for finding us, because we're on a different link. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to come over and find us today. And if you're having any, if you have like anything else that you want to talk about, we have a little bit of time. We have a little bit of time. Yeah. So Dr. Akhu, what is how is the morale of like just general people in your area? Like in Scarsdale, right?
I'm on the border of Scarsdale and New Rochelle, in the containment zone, as they say. Actually, steps away from the synagogue where the first identified case in our area, and people are walking. A lot of people are out walking, and but distancing. And I like to say physically distancing, not social distancing. I don't know who coined that term, but it's really important for us to remember that what we need to do is be physically distanced from each other, but not socially. We are social animals. We need each other, and we need each other at times of stress even more. You know how stress reducing a hug is? It's incredibly stress reducing. And no, we can't hug people that we might have hugged in the past, but even being able to talk to somebody like we're doing here, to see people, that still has some effects on our brains. Research shows that has some effects on the same parts of the brain as physical touch. So it's important to socially connect while we physically distance. So I'm finding that people are distancing, but saying hello, still friendly, seem to be doing overall pretty well in the neighborhood. I think it really depends on what your life is like at the moment. The people who are on the front lines in the hospitals, they're stressed. And I'm talking to a lot of them and trying to help them through their stress. People who have been economically challenged because they've lost their jobs, they're stressed. And so, trying to find ways to help them. But those of us who are blessed to still be able to keep our economics about the same and live in a space where, here we're not on top of each other. So it's easy to be able to go for a nice long walk and only have a few times where I have to figure out how to get away from people so that I'm not too physically close. I think that the stress level is a little lower for us than it would be for people who are in the city that are really close to each other and so forth.
And we had a turn in the weather, so I'm maybe like 2.5 or 3 hours south of you. We've had an improvement in the weather, which I feel like has helped improve people's spirits a little bit too.
It's a lovely day today.
Yes, it is. Yeah, we've had a couple of back-to-back great days, and I think that helps, even if it's just for a little while, it helps to make you feel a little better. Okay. So again, I'm going to link to Dr. Akhu's 5-day journey. Okay. I'm going to link to it. And don't get upset with me if I send it to you guys as DMs on Instagram, because I might do that too. But I'm going to link to her 5-day journey. And if you're getting my email, if you're on my email list, I'll send it to you that way as well. This is a journey that they don't have to start on a specific day, because I run a challenge, but it starts on a certain day.
This is self-guided. You don't have to start on a specific day, and you can take breaks if you want to. It's 5 different emails that'll be sent to you in your email box. And so each email is a prompt to do something different to cultivate inner peace. So you can do it once a week. It's going to show up for the first 5 days in a row, but you can just go to it once a week if that's what works for you. And so it's just an opportunity for you to give something different a try to cultivate your inner peace.
Great. All right. I appreciate you being here. And
Oh,
friends,
thank you so much for me.
thank you. And thank you for bearing with me and being so patient. I knew that you would be.
As part of having inner peace is to be able to be patient with other people as they're hopefully being patient with me.
Yes. I see it in you. I see that. Okay. And thank you, ladies. Thank you, friends, for being here today. I hope that you have a fantastic weekend. I don't know. Sometimes I tell you what the next video is going to be. I don't know what it is. We talked to Cassandra. No, the chef. Yeah, Cassandra, the chef. I'm hoping to talk to her about cruise ship work. But I don't know if that's going to be the next one. So I should not have said that out loud. But thank you all for joining. Have a fantastic weekend. And I will see you again soon.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.